Hi, I'm Rose Kun, and you're listening to the Rosie Rose podcast. Today we have Rory. He lives in Seattle, Washington. He is a mindfulness coach, energy medicine practitioner, and award winning product design director. He's equally passionate about the latest scientific breakthrough in wellness as he is about our soul's unique journey and the necessity, of the holistic approach for true healing. Rory's been actively involved in the field of health and wellness for the past 30 years. During that time, he's been a certified personal trainer, licensed massage practitioner, Reiki master, sound healer, and a mindfulness coach and meditation teacher who's developed and launched multiple wellness based businesses. His mission is to help those who are out of balance achieve wholeness by learning to modify their thoughts and emotion to better align with their true Desire. Welcome, Rory.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah. So, can you tell us a little bit about your story and what got you into what you're doing now?
Yeah, that's a long story, but I'll try to make it succinct as possible. I've been into like health and wellness from a pretty early age. Back in high school, I started lifting weights and thinking about nutrition, and it was a very, very, very different world back then. Of course, this is like before the internet. This is when people were using magazines to get their information. And so, yeah, I just kind of peaked at an early age, and I started, doing sports, and as I mentioned, working out, trying to figure out how to eat healthy. As I got older, kind of post high school, I really started to change, get more into what I'd say like spiritual things. So I started doing yoga, I started doing meditation, stuff like that. And I had a really big shift around the age of 21, where I had what I'd call my spiritual awakening. I had read a book, and it just kind of this light bulb moment had gone off, where I had realized that there was this information that I had always known, like that I always felt, but I couldn't really put it into words. And once I read this book, like everything changed. And that's really when I kind of made this like first pivot in my life, this really first big pivot. So changed my diet to going vegan. As I mentioned, I started meditating all the time, started doing yoga three hours a day. I cut out any kind of smoking, alcohol, all that stuff, and just really went all in. It's one of those things about my personality when I'm excited about something, when I'm passionate about something, I'm very black and white. So I just kind of, took the old life and put it aside, and went into that life. And ever since, 21, it's been 30 years. I've not stopped. I've had my day job. I'm in tech industry. I'm an art and design director, and I love my day job. I love being creative, but I've always been into health, wellness, and spirituality, and always looking for ways to continue to evolve that. And eventually, I want that to be my full-time job. Like I do it on the side. I'm always training and learning, but my goal is to be able to do that full time over the next few years.
Yeah. So, you said you got into, so are you still a vegan now or has things changed?
That's great. So after the age of 21, I was in this period where I was really healthy for a long time, like just the epitome of health. And I had gone to a yoga class, and I came home that night and I was just really exhausted. And I didn't know what was going on. Went to bed, woke up, I felt fine. I went back to yoga, kind of same thing. Felt really, really tired in a way that I just had never felt tired before. I mean, I was 25 years old. And um, so I decided to take a little bit more time off. I think like I took like a week off. I was like, oh, maybe I was, I had a pretty, I was still in tech at that time, so I had a pretty stressful job. And so I thought maybe I was just working too hard. Took a week off, went back, and then same thing, just this massive fatigue. Ended up taking a month off, no difference. And so I realized something was out of balance. Something was really wrong. And that's when I started to go to the doctor and run some tests, and started with Western medicine at the time. It was really kind of all I knew. I hadn't really had an issue to dive into like alternative medicine, and my doctor came up with nothing, which has kind of been the case over the decades where I've been trying to get to the bottom of this. And so, yeah, I for a while it kicked off this period where I was really trying to find answers. Uh, but after a couple of years, I became really um, disheartened. I wasn't finding any answers. I wasn't getting any better. And I really went through kind of my first period of checking out. And so I changed my diet. I kind of went back to like my older lifestyle of where whatever I was doing wasn't working and I wasn't finding answers and I was becoming very, very frustrated. And I just kind of stopped trying for a while. And that's happened a couple times in my life, um, which we can talk about more.
Yeah, so you've gone through a lot of like just different health condition or like health journey and
Yeah.
trying to figure out. So did you find what was wrong with you, or not wrong, but like what, you know?
Yeah. That's a good question. So I think health issues, especially nowadays, can be very, very tricky, right? We have these like chronic health issues, we have mystery health issues. It's very different than it probably was, 40 years ago. And we can talk about all the reasons why it's so difficult to be healthy nowadays. I definitely would have what I would call, I've been dealing with chronic health issues and what I would call mystery health issues for a long time, where I was trying to get to the bottom of it, running every test under the sun. No one was coming back with anything that was really big, right? You find small things here and there. And it wasn't until about, 5 or 6 years ago where I went through what I would call a midlife crisis. And we can say, my definition of a midlife crisis is maybe a little different than the norm. I actually think a midlife crisis is something that can be really healthy. I think midlife crises happen not to people that really are on track in their life. It happens when we get off track. I think it's generally a wake-up call, right? Our life is off track. We're somewhere around that midlife point, and we're realizing that the life that we're living is not the life that we want. And it oftentimes happens because of this crisis, right? Something happens and we kind of have this wake up, and then we start to like completely want to change and shift our lives. I think it can be a very, very healthy moment if people can see it and embrace it for what it is. So I went through this experience where, yeah, my life was really just falling apart. I was going through divorce. I was at a job where I just was very, very unhappy, not being treated in a way that I felt like I deserved. And on top of that, then I went to the doctor and got diagnosed with some like life-threatening health issues. And so for me, it was really, again, it was a wake-up call. It was like this, I didn't see it that way in the moment, of course. I just saw it as kind of sheer fear and panic. But I think about, within a month's time, things had started to transpire. And I really was able to see that I was not living an authentic life, that I had gotten lost,
Mm.
that in my pursuit of trying to find happiness or trying to live a life in a way that society had deemed happy, I had just gotten off track. Um, Sorry, what was the original question?
What was her what was her I totally forgot. It You got me when you said the midlife crisis, because I
Yeah,
never
yeah, yeah.
thought about that as a like it could be a good thing of
I
like
think
you're
it,
off track. Like I never heard that definition before until you mentioned it. And I really love, what your definition of the midlife crisis.
yeah. I mean, I think when you think about when people are going through those experiences, like I said, how many people that are truly, truly happy across all categories of their life are having a midlife crisis? Yes, we have like a health crisis, or maybe a spouse has a health crisis, or something comes up with our job. That's not like a midlife crisis. Like a midlife crisis, I think, is when you're evaluating all those areas of your life and you're like, whoa, I'm really not where I want to be. And like I said, I think it can be a very natural part of being human. I think as we start our lives, right, we believe that one certain thing is going to equate to happiness. Maybe that's like getting married and having children and having a good job and like that storybook. And then we get to that place and realize I have all these things, but I'm still not happy. Why
Mm.
is that? And it takes us a while to go through that story to get to that place. And so I think it's a very natural part of the process and something that should ideally be more embraced and understood instead of like shunned.
Yeah. And so when you were in your midlife crisis, like what helped you
Mm.
overcome that?
Yeah, so a lot of people. At first I had realized the physical diagnosis was really kind of top of mind, right? There was like this, hey, this has gotten serious now. I'd had these health issues that I was unable to get to the bottom of, and now they had gotten to a place where I couldn't ignore them. So that was really kind of top of mind of like, I need to go out and figure this out. I also had to, of course, figure out my marriage, which was kind of coming to a place where it was ending, and my job. So I was figuring out all three of those things at the same time. Um, but going down the avenue of the health stuff first really was kind of what helped me to have more clarity. And so what I mean by that is like I started to seek out again alternate ways of health. It's not that I'm opposed to Western medicine. I just don't always think Western medicine is able to get to the core of what's going on with us, right? It's like they're very symptom based. We have, they run tests and you have a lot of symptoms and then we give you drugs to be able to deal with those symptoms. But like really what's the root cause of what's going on? And I had gone to a sound bath, which I had never gone to before. A friend of mine recommended to go to a sound bath, not for healing, just as an experience. And in that, I had what I would call like maybe my second wake up call, positive wake up call, where I just had this really profound experience, and it just ignited this spark in me to pull myself up and to get back on path and to keep trying again. Like that part of me that was spiritual that had gone kind of dormant throughout my relationship um, was reignited. And so what I did was I just kind of followed that path. I had asked that woman who she goes to. I was like, who do you go to when you're having these crises? And she gave me a list of names, and I went to all three of those people, and then I asked them, who do you go to? And that just started to expand. And over, I don't know, maybe a 6-month period of time, I had a group of people that I was working with. Lots of different things. I was doing breath work, I was doing sound healing. I'd gone to somebody to treat my physical body, of course, because there are physical symptoms. But what I had realized over that time was that health is a physical, spiritual, and emotional. It's a combination of all those things, right? So sometimes, yes, we're lucky we can have an ailment in our body and we can treat it physically, and that's the end of it. Oftentimes, I think when it's chronic or mystery, or it's really large, it's a combination of those three things, right? It's not just your physical body has gotten off track and we can just supplement it and give it what it needs and then it's going to be fixed. It's like we got to look at the core, and the core is often spiritual or emotional. When I say emotional, that's the emotional trauma, right? All the things that we've been carrying with us throughout our lifetime that have not been dealt with and not been expressed and not been treated. And then spiritually, I think for some of us, that's about that we've gotten off path, right? That we maybe came into life to live a certain way and to show up a certain way and to express ourselves a certain way. And through parental conditioning, society conditioning, what our spouses want for us or want us to be, we get off track. And that getting off track has repercussions on every single level. And so I had really realized that I was not approaching it holistically. I was approaching it for the most part physically. Like, that's kind of what we've been taught. You get sick, you go to the doctor, there's a solution. And that change was everything. That change of looking at it holistically really made all the difference in the world. And so I just went all in. And that's what I've been doing for the last 5 years. And it really helped to change not just my physical body and symptoms, but every aspect of my life.
Yeah. So you mentioned that it's physical, mental, and spiritual and emotional.
Yeah, well, yeah, there you go. Yes. Thank
Yeah.
you. 4.
Yeah. So getting everything all aligned to meet like okay, I guess okay, hold on. So when you say getting at the core root, right? Is it the core root of your physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual?
Yes.
And how can one person get to their core? Like somebody just new listening to this and they're just, you know, new into this and they're like, what are you talking about? Like physical, mental, spiritual. How can we go get down to like the core of what's going on within us?
Yeah, well, it's a good question. I think there's a lot of different ways to approach that. And ultimately, it is a long term. and maybe lifelong process. And there's nothing wrong with saying it's lifelong. It doesn't mean that if you have health problems, it has to be lifelong to get to the core. I think a lot of times what it is that we've been so conditioned, which is just natural. It's a natural way of being human, is that you come into the world and you are kind of this, I don't want to say blank slate. You already are your authentic self, right?
Mhm.
And that authentic self still has generational stuff, right? Like you're still carrying on the DNA from your parents and maybe from your other ancestors. Like you're coming in with a lot. But what happens is that we are programmed through our upbringing, right? And like I said, through society, through religion, all those things start to pull us away from our authentic self. So that I think that just happens naturally. And a lot of that depends on the situation that we're brought into. And then, of course, on top of that, some of us have some fairly serious trauma, right? And that trauma is something that a lot of times either we push down because we can't handle it, or it shows up in our everyday life in the way that we express ourselves, right? Like we can't hide that trauma and it's always on the surface. So part of it is just getting back to like who you truly are and who you were in the beginning. And that process can be as simple as just taking a step back and getting out a piece of paper and giving yourself some time to just reflect on who do you believe you truly are? Like, what are the things that you stand for? What are the things that are important to you? What are the things that you want in life and that you don't want in life? So you can start like someplace super simple like that. Of course, that can go on to finding, therapists, finding life coaches, finding people that can really help you to dig in even further to that. I think the important thing is, some of us don't feel off track. Like some of us are living our lives and we're happy and our health is in good condition, and you don't have to feel compelled to like do this if you don't want to. But I think if you feel that your life is off track, if you feel that you're struggling, a lot of times it's because we're not living our authentic self and our authentic lives. We have made compromises in our lives for some reason, and those types of things eventually come back to get us.
Ooh, I love that. Because, when you were speaking about that authentic life and realizing, like, who are you? You know, why am I here? I think I lost my identity of becoming a mother because I was so focused to becoming a mother. I'm like, who am I? Like, what do I like? Like, had to question everything. And what led me to like go to like my awakening was really forgiveness. But in that, but before that was meditation.
Mm.
Meditation is what helped me release um those build up emotions that I pressed down, and it was just the solitude time of just sitting down and just meditating. It didn't happen right away. I mean, it took
Yeah.
me months to finally get into this flow state where I was able to tap in, like sitting down for 20, 45 minutes at one time. And it was just releasing all these emotions for me that was like I did not know that it was in me. And I think meditation has helped me tremendously. And I know that you teach mindfulness meditation at Microsoft. Is that correct?
Inside and outside, yes.
Yeah, I love that. So, what are some simple mindful practice that you recommend who for people who are just starting out?
Yeah, well, I loved what you just described in terms of the process that you went through. Because to be honest, like when we think about mindfulness, like the standard definition of mindfulness is really just being here in the present moment, and when things come up, not reacting or not judging. So that's like the umbrella definition. And what that does, like as you're saying, meditation and mindfulness are the same thing, right? So there's meditation where I'm going to sit, maybe I'm going to close my eyes, and I'm just going to be here without distraction. And then there's mindfulness, which is I'm actually going to go to work. I'm going to live my life and do my day to day, but I'm going to carry that same practice with me throughout every moment. And once you start to do that, once you start to, we can talk about this, like 95% of our waking life is our unconscious mind. So we are just programmed and trained to run through these same scripts over and over and over again. 5% is conscious, right? 5% is when we're breaking out of that pattern and we're like consciously in the moment. And so a lot of mindfulness and meditation is to try to override that, to try, well, we do have the opportunity to rewrite that programming. It is not easy, but if you're not mindful, if you're not giving yourself those moments, then you're not going to do it. So what I like to tell people is that one, meditation is not about closing your eyes and not having any thoughts, right? So people get super frustrated. They're like, I'm terrible at meditation. I'm like, well, it's because the definition that you have is wrong,
Yeah.
right? Right? Like, it's okay. The way I like to describe it is you're giving yourself an opportunity to just be. That's it. What if you just go sit outside with like a cup of tea or a cup of coffee in the morning and you just allow yourself to sit there with your thoughts, right? You're not distracted by the TV or your phone or all of your to-dos. You just allow yourself to just be. And in society now, that's really probably harder than it's ever been, right? With all of the technology, we have a really hard time just being. We're constantly picking up our phones, we're watching television and we're on our phones. Like it's is affecting everyone. Um, and so when you think about it, it's like, you ask somebody this, like, how often do you allow yourself to just be? And I used to go on really long walks. It's one of my favorite ways to meditate, right? I go on a long, long, long walk. I have zero distractions and I'm just left with myself and my thoughts. And I think, like, probably as you experienced, as you go through that process, things are going to come to the surface. Thoughts, ahas, emotions, all kinds of stuff's going to come to the surface. And you're going to have that opportunity to look at it. And ideally, that is, and of course, that's one form of meditation. There's many forms of meditation. There's energy meditation, where you're just in your body and you're working with your energy, right? There's gratitude meditations, there's forgiveness meditations. It's a really big umbrella. But I like to say, I think the most important thing is just allowing yourself that time during the day, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes to just be, is really profound. And I don't think most of us are doing that. And so, whatever form you decide to start with, understand that just giving yourself the time is success. Whatever it looks like during that time is totally fine, right? It doesn't have to be any specific thing, but just giving yourself that time is success.
Yeah. And like mindfulness could be, or meditation or mindfulness, like you can just take a deep breath before drinking a cup of coffee. And that's a great way to just practice it, like just to start, like just be with your coffee. Take a deep breath, smell it, and and release it.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, the goal is that your mind is not running the show, because that's what's happening right now. We've just been programmed, some people extremely well. That's probably the minority, and probably the most of us somewhere in between. And mindfulness is really about getting back in the driver's seat. Like, do you want to be in control of your life? Well, if you do, you have to get control of your mind.
Mm.
And it sounds daunting, but honestly, it's not. It's just little by little, taking, like you said, taking those breaks, even when you're having a conversation with somebody, especially when you're having like a heated conversation with someone, right? It's like where you get to take that breath and you realize, hey, I'm angry. How do I want to react in this moment?
Mm.
Do I want to just react? Do I want to just like blurt out from my anger? Or do I, and this is super important, of course, when we're talking about intimate partnerships, right? Like, that communication and holding that space and not getting into a reactive state is the difference between probably a successful relationship and partnership and an unsuccessful one. And so mindfulness is really getting back to that place of, as you said, can I take that deep breath in each moment of life? And can I see what's going on inside of me? Why is this happening? Why am I feeling this way? And then can I make a conscious choice about how I want to respond? And over time, you get to rewrite yourself and your programming to be to a place that's serving you, not working against you. And again, we have been, I keep using this word program, but right, we have been for a very long time. You know, I'm 50 years old. I've been doing it for 50 years. It doesn't happen overnight when you want to change those things. Like change can take time because of the amount of time it took us to get here in the first place.
Wow. Well, I love your definition of what you just mentioned there. And it's like sometimes I'm going to somewhere else now because
No, it's okay. Let's do it.
when you say you're 50, I was like, oh, you don't look 50 at all. And it just brought me to back to like why are we here? Because you mentioned the word program, right? And like we are kind of like a supercomputer.
Mhm.
And there's so many programmings out there. We watch TV or they're everywhere.
Yeah.
And okay, now because you worked at Microsoft
Yep.
or yeah, okay. So I don't know, but okay, so when they say that we are like humans, right? We're like a computer system. And we sometimes we need to shut off and like reset our system. Um Sometimes when we reset our system, we have to kind of like slow down. Can you give me an analogy about how life and computers and slowing down like I know I'm just throwing this out there.
No, no. Well, I'm going to get very esoteric here.
Yes, please do.
You know, and again, this depends on your belief system. Like, I believe that we have a soul, right? I believe that we come here and that we are not humans. We are having a human experience, right? So I think about our bodies as our bodies are not us. Our bodies really this like organic spacesuit, right? You come here, you merge with this body, and this body is what allows you to exist in this world, to have a physical human experience. So part of it is also like trying not to identify too much with the body, right? Like we get so consumed with the body that we got and how perfect the body that we got is and the mind. And part of it's realizing like this container is what allows us to be here. It's what allows us to have these experiences. And I don't want to say it has some flaws, but it has some difficulties, right? It does have those difficulties that like everything is programming it all the time. And it's part of what you have to work through, right? Like, what if we didn't have that? What would life be like if like we just got to decide every moment what we wanted our programming to be and how we wanted to operate? Maybe we're getting there someday, right? That's not where we're at right now. So we're in this place where sometimes our desires and our authentic self and what we want are also in contrast to the body that we have and the way that it operates. And so a lot of times, like when people are going through things, it's important to understand like you are going through this thing, but your body's actually going through this thing as well. Like, can you
Mm,
abstract it a little bit where it's like, I feel depressed? Well, you do, but can we look at like your body's depressed as well because you've stayed in this state for a long time of sadness? Maybe some really traumatic thing happened to you, and it's been 6 months of you like being in this state where it was justifiable that you were really sad. But what's happened now is your body has gotten into a new pattern of depression.
mm,
And now you have to figure out how to change, like to reprogram out of depression. And so instead of saying, I'm depressed, I'm a depressed person, it's like, well, that's your experience. You are experiencing depression. But like, if we can tie it back to like what's happening in the body and how do we get the body to change its state so you can feel different. So there's just this, I mean, this the relationship between our soul and living in the body is like so intertwined. But I think sometimes it's important to understand that we're not our body, right? We will exist, if you believe this, of course, and I think almost every religion does believe we will exist after this lifetime. Then you can see like, well, you really weren't your body. You're the spiritual being having experience inside of this body here on this planet at this point. And so, but it does have a huge effect on us. The way it operates has a huge effect on us. And of course, not everybody's is the same, right? We're born in with different traits and different strengths depending on our parents. And yeah, how do we deal with it? It's complicated.
Yeah. And so you mentioned about being depressed, like you've been programming your body to be depressed. How
Yeah.
can one person what can what can you do to change the physical out of
Yeah. Yeah. So I think one thing I'd say is like with that awareness in the future, it's really important to find a way to not stay in those states for too long, right? So if something happens, 100% you need to go to that state. You need to allow yourself to feel and express all of those really big emotions, like get them out, have those moments, totally healthy, totally normal. Problem is, like I said, when we stay in that longer and longer and longer, our brain chemistry changes. That starts to become the new norm, and undoing that becomes harder. So, there's lots of things. It's really gets back to like what brings you joy, because that's going to release different chemicals. Get back to a life where, and it's hard. I know when you're depressed, like I know sometimes it's just hard to get out of bed, right? It's hard to like even go to work. So there's different levels of this that I'm talking about, of course. But like it's really like finding a way to ignite the joy again. And I think that has to start with simple things, right? You got to start, it's like that crawl, walk, run. You got to get out of bed and try to do one thing during the day that makes you feel good. And, maybe next week it's doing two things. And eventually over time, you're going to be able to make that shift. And like I said, I know it's harder for some individuals than others. I know it's harder depending on the context. And it's harder for how long you've been living with this.
Mhm.
If you've been living with this for 10 years, 20 years, like it's not easy. Like I'm not going to say it's easy. Change is not easy. But I do believe that even in the most dire circumstances, change is possible. It's just, it can be really, really challenging.
Yeah, absolutely. And it just brought me back to thinking about, I had like anger problems. And especially it showed up in romantic relationship. Like
Yeah.
anger will come up. And I never really like looked at like where was this root of this anger coming from?
Yeah.
And I did breath work, somatic breath work. And I realized that, there was this anger that was coming out, but I didn't know like why am I angry? And I just let myself feel that anger and that
Mhm.
rage. I had so much rage during this breathwork session. And it came out of nowhere. Like I screamed like I never screamed before. Like it was just like something just came out of me. And after just being angry, like I fell into like this deep sadness. And in this deep sadness, I was just feeling those emotions and crying. And then I come to realize that I had never grieved my father's death at 7 years old.
Mm.
And it to came to that, and also being angry about losing my dad at 7. I had no idea. And that anger showed up in my romantic relationship.
Yeah.
And then to come to realize that, oh wow, I was such an angry person at times. And I would lash on my partners.
Hmm.
But to come being aware of this, I'm like, wow, like, like now I don't get angry. I can't say I'm sure I'll get angry here and there, but after releasing that anger, like there was like this lightness that came afterwards. Like, oh, it was like a big release of this emotion that I had held on for so many years. And just releasing that rage was like, oh, it was so empowering because now I look at it, I'm like, wow, that was my root right there.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's a beautiful example. And yeah, I hear, oftentimes that anger will mask the sadness. Anger can become a tool for us to not feel some of those harder feelings. And so it's really beautiful how you described, like, it started with the anger, but then it like moved into sadness, like underneath what was there. And that's a perfect example of the process, right? The process doesn't look the same for everyone, but what you just described is that process. It's like realizing there's something going on with me. Maybe with you, you're like, I'm angry and maybe I don't want to show up this way anymore. Like maybe this is not constructive for my relationships. It's taking accountability, right? Like it's very easy for us to point the finger at our partner, point the finger at the world. It's like, but ultimately, there's always going to be the world. There's always going to be, no matter who your partner is or what their traits are, they're going to trigger you. Really, it's about bringing that finger, pointing it back on ourselves, taking accountability, saying, why am I showing up the way that I'm showing up? And where is that not in service of me? And then what can I do about it? And like I said, that is a perfect example. And sometimes we don't even need to know the reason why. You could be angry. You could go have this incredible somatic experience. You could release all this anger. And then maybe you don't feel angry anymore, right? And then sometimes it is helpful for us to know the why. I would say that a lot of this stuff also gets passed on generationally.
Yes.
So sometimes we may feel something and we don't understand why we feel it that way. And we try to get to the bottom and try to get to the bottom. It's like because you inherited this, right? You inherited these traits, DNA, energetically through your family and your parents, through whatever traumatic events they had. And so we're not only dealing with what's happened since we were born, we're dealing with things that have been passed on to us. And so again, of course, I love to understand the why. Like I'm always intrigued by the why. But there are moments where the why is not important. And really, it's that there is an energy inside of me. I don't want to carry it anymore. It's not healthy. It's either coming out through anger, it's coming out through sadness, or it's affecting my physical body and I'm sick and I just want to get it out. And there's a lot of different ways. Like you said, breath work, somatic, any type of somatic work is great. Um, so yeah, that's a really beautiful experience that you had.
Yeah, and also just learning the tools that there's so many tools for us to release and to just tap into. Because for me as a meditator, um, sometimes my body is called to go meditate. Like I'm feeling like heavy, and I'm just like, there's something within me that is just not aligned. And that is a sign for me, like, okay, I need to really go within. And one time when I was meditating, I do a mix of like guided, but mostly silent meditation. Um, and when I did this meditation not too long ago, um, for me, I feel like when it's time for you to like see something to heal, it shows up
Hmm.
for you.
Yeah.
But in this meditation, I was sitting down, probably like after like 10, 15 minutes, I started crying. And when I was crying, my mind was like trying to fix it for me, like saying, "Why are you crying? Like, why are you crying?" You know? And I had to just like not dismiss, but just let that thought of why are you crying out. And then just to feel those emotions of just l- feel it, whatever I was going through in that moment. And in the moment of feeling, the sadness and mostly sadness. And then it came later on, it came why I was crying. I was actually crying, and healing my 21-year-old self that had a broken
Mm.
heart, like that wanted to like kill herself and was just like so deeply saddened. And I thought I was already like healed and over it already.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
my body kept score and was like,
Yeah.
no, this is what you're coming back to. So I had to give, space and love for this 20, my 21-year-old self. And it's just crazy how I think like, oh, I that's, that broken heart. Oh, I healed that already. Like it's over. And then years later it shows up. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of times, like we do what we need to do to get through the experience, right? We're not always trying to figure out necessarily how to heal. Sometimes we're just trying to figure out like how to survive, right? your heart gets broken and you just want to not feel that pain and you want to move on with your life. And yeah, maybe we go through some level of forgiveness and things like that. But as you mentioned, like doesn't necessarily mean that energy has dissipated, especially when there's a lot of trauma. And so you're right, it does come back. It can come back time and time again until we truly deal with it. I like the other thing you said too, because if we think about ourselves as children, we would show up and react differently. And so what I mean by that is, if you have a child and your child's in distress, you don't like, here, have a beer, like go self-medicate, right? Go watch some TV. Right? You're like, let's talk about this. Let me hold space for you. Let me hold you. Like I am here in service of getting to the bottom of whatever is going on with you. And we're just going to make this space right now. But we rarely do that for ourselves. So things come up and they're hard and they're difficult. And what we turn to a lot is self-medication. We're like, the pain is intense. I don't want the pain. So I'm going to do whatever I can to distract myself or to numb the pain. And then eventually, like you said, what you've done is you've just pushed it down. And over time, the pain has gotten less and less, and you've learned to survive. And then you kind of get out of it. But you didn't do anything with it, right? You just shoved it all down. And so if you think about it, like, we are all children. We all have our inner child. We all have, our wounded inner child. And so the next time something comes up in our lives, which you did, and it's difficult, it's really about how can I sit with this? Instead of escaping, what if I just went and sat and closed my eyes and just said, I'm here to listen. Like whatever you need to say, I'm not going anywhere. And you're right, like that process you went through was a perfect example of what can happen when we just listen. At my feelings, I let them out. My body moves all that energy. And in that process, you have all these insights as well. Like all the things you never would have had if you just like pushed it down and self-medicated. So it's like that's a beautiful example of what's possible for us. And it's not a hard process. It's actually so simple. What you did was so simple, but it can be so, so profound.
Yes, absolutely. And it's really, can you allow yourself to be in stillness?
Yeah.
Can you allow yourself to just be in a quiet space? Yeah. And so you are also an author. You wrote the book Transform Yourself Through Disease: 8 Steps to Reclaim Your Health and Your Life.
Yeah. Yeah. I wrote that, gosh, I don't know how many years it's been. I think it's been about 3 or 4 years. And that was really the culmination of that experience that I'd gone through, right? So I had kind of my midlife crisis and my wake up call, and I went on this journey of exploration and healing. And I had assembled my team, and I had coaches and people that were filling my head with what to do and how life works and how to deal and navigate with these situations. And I say to anybody, it's like, don't do it on your own. I mean, yeah, the journey's yours. You got to take the first step, but like go out and find people that have solved your problem, right? And that's not necessarily one person. It could be, I had a team of people, that did different things. I had a breathwork coach, right? I had someone that, like I said, helped me with my nutrition. I helped somebody that was really helping me with my mind and like understanding how the mind works and, how we can ideally get back in control of our mind. And so it was really a group of people. And then in the end, it turned into a book, and it was never something I thought I would do. It was not even something I was actually interested in. But one day it just hit me that, I kind of had that like download, that intuitive piece of information that this was something I was going to do. And I had been keeping a lot of extensive notes. And so I had told you earlier, like I love to go on long walks. And during that process for me, it's very cathartic where one, I would just unwind, my mind would unwind, my body would unwind, but I'd also get a lot of intuitive information, and you have a lot of time to think. And so I had wrote the whole book on those walks, not knowing what I was doing. I was literally just taking notes as they would come into my mind. And then when I decided to write the book, I just took all those notes out and digitized them. And I had an outline within like, 30 minutes. And I was really somewhat shocked.
That's
uh,
amazing.
but it was a really fun process and a really good way for me to think through my journey, for me to think through like what were the steps that I took, and to really kind of put like a bow on that period. I have, of course, still learning. I'm, of course, still growing. still evolving my beliefs and the way that I think. But the book was really kind of a synopsis of, that period of my life and where my mind was and where my beliefs were at that time.
Yeah, awesome. And we can find your book on Amazon and Audible, right?
Yep, yep.
Yeah. And so any last words for the people listening?
I would just say, one, don't lose hope. I know life can be really challenging. We have a lot of ups and downs, but I'd say now more than ever, there is so much information out there. Like, it's really beautiful, how we can be connected to people so easily these days, how we can hear other people's stories, how we can find different resources to like get help. So one is just, I'd say the age of the internet has really revolutionized the way that we can find information and connect, which is such a different world than where I was 25 years ago and all this started. So I'm super excited about that. And yeah, I would just say like the important thing is to find the courage and resolve to put one foot in front of the other every day. A lot of these things, depending on if it's a small issue in your life or it's turned into a really big issue in your life, I truly believe that there is an answer and a path to wholeness. And it's just, finding your tribe, finding the people that are going to help you. And really, like I said, just having the courage and belief that you can do it.
Mm, the courage and belief that you can do it. And you can. We all
Yeah.
can. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Rory. Rory also is a radio host. If you want to hear more of Rory, I'll put in the show notes of his radio talks that you have. Um so thank you so much, Rory. It was amazing talking to you and just all the insights of just life, spirituality, healing. Um, thank you.
Yeah. My pleasure. It was great to meet you.
Yeah. So I'll leave all the details if you want to get in touch with him. I'll put his email and show all his info in the link down below. So thank you guys for tuning in and have a wonderful day. Bye.